Hello, everybody. It's Ariel Ellis. I'm author of The Original Millennial and presenting this thought leadership series to everyone to talk about millennials who are leaders in business and community. A lot of the conversation that's had about millennials focuses on us being slackers and narcissists and lazy and not innovative. There's not a lot of conversation about how we're leading, how we are creative, how we are bold and building bridges to communities and leading in business as well. So one of the key reasons why we launched this series is to talk about the shift that's going to happen culturally with 75% of millennials working in the workforce or being in the workforce in leadership positions within the next 10 to 15 years. That's a huge shift that's going to take place. So one of the reasons why we wanted to be able to have this discussion and build on the book, but also create some video content and some blog content, was to be able to bring you the stories of those millennials to talk about the type of work that they're doing and the ways in which they're creating a path to leadership, to be able to create that shift and be in the forefront of that shift that's happening right now. So I've been bringing you some really, really interesting stories from certain millennials all across the country and even some who are based internationally. And I have a really great person I want to introduce to you today. Her name is Earlina Green. She's an author, writer, and the founder of Millennial Earth, a faith-based movement designed for millennials. She is based in Texas, and she graduated from the University of North Texas, where she got a degree in communications and marketing. After graduation, she started her career in the business world, assisting a startup, small minor league basketball team. Before she moved over and worked with the Dallas Mavericks. Shortly after, she was hired as a director of ticket sales for the New York Knicks, a startup team in White Plains, New York. And in that same year, very accomplished and very high-level achiever, she completed and self-published 7 tips to breaking into the world of sports, landing the job of your dreams for the college graduate. Very interesting. Fall of 2016, another project will be coming down the line for her, which is a piece of a personal piece for her, some personal work called God of My Youth. This is a book for 20-somethings who are struggling with choices that they have made pretty early in life and tackling various topics like pornography addiction, narcissism, performance-based faith, and materialism, viewed through a grace lens. So she's going to talk a lot about her path. She's going to talk about the contribution that she's making. She's going to talk about what it means to be an original millennial. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So tell us your story. What led you to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. So I graduated from the University of North Texas, like you mentioned earlier. I went to school and wanted to major in something that I could be excited about and also have a job once I graduated. And so went into communication studies, enjoyed the curriculum, enjoyed learning about how to communicate correctly with people through writing and through speaking, and just thrived out through the 4 years. Kept my head down, got to work. I'm also a triplet, so I went to school with my sisters all at one time, and so that was pretty fun. But if we go back a little bit further, I grew up here in Dallas, Texas. My mom is a retired police detective. My dad, he chose a kind of a different career and being an activist here in Dallas. And the funny story in our family is that my mom, a police detective, and my dad, an activist protesting police brutality in the 90s. And so I got a little bit of that on both ends. I got a dad who was outspoken, who was always looking out for the little guy through protesting and activism. And then I have my mom who's on the other side of the law, protecting and serving through that end. And so growing up in my household with 2 other sisters, it was very exciting, very competitive, very challenging. And that's what led me to work ironically, in the world of sports. And so I started my career here in Dallas with a minor league team, went to work for our major league team, the Dallas Mavericks, and then got the call up to work in New York, which was a blessing, a tremendous opportunity to be out there and actually to find a new group of young people who are interested in working in the industry, but also tap into a different kind of atmosphere that New York offers. I went to a great church out there called Hillsong NYC, led by Pastor Carl Lentz, and again, amazing experience, a different way people do, I want to say people do the relationship with Christ. And so loved it out there in New York. Came back, got engaged, started writing my second book, and then working at a tech company and forwarding some of the goals of my nonprofit. So it's been busy since arriving back from New York. Yeah.
Good. You're all over the place, but on purpose. I like to say that for myself and other people, you're on purpose. So you're busy.
I agree.
Yeah, you're busy and productive, but you're definitely on your purpose.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about what it was like having or being a triplet.
Yeah.
And having, your parents raising 3 millennials.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's just say you learn how to share early on. You learn how to share. You learn how to sometimes fight fair. Other times, we duked it out over the littlest of things. My mom did the best she could. When my dad, he made other decisions. He left our family. My mom did the best she could raising triplets on her own. And so, we had many times that we had to scrounge together to get things done. But I think we never went without. And my mom was a believer. She believed that no matter what, that we didn't have an earthly father, but that we had a heavenly father that would take care of everything we needed. So we didn't worry about too much. But again, growing up with 2 other siblings, especially same age, you do get into some arguments and some competitive banter back and forth, but it was all in good spirit. So,
yeah. What was the influence of your parents? Talk a little bit more about their influence and how that kind of combined, or kind of how that gave you the direction and the guidance, perhaps, or if it had any influence on the work that you do now.
Sure. So the work that I do now, look, I did the business world. I still am, currently in it, but the work I do now is the passion work and the purpose work I do. Writing for me, it started out as a hobby, and then it started out, I wanted to inform young kids about how to break into an industry that it seemed like everyone wanted to work in, the sports industry. And then it really became, you look around society today and you start asking some really important questions. What's the future going to look like if we continue down the path? And so the influence was, my mom always said, follow your heart, follow your dreams. My mom used to take, I remember this to this day, we used to, for Christmas and around holidays, she used to put us in the car in our pajamas, and she used to drive us around neighborhoods where the big houses were. And she always used to say, dream big, girls, you can have that, you can have that. And that was great, because I think it teaches you to think outside the box. We lived in a nice little quaint house in Garland, and my mom was always taking us to these areas. And so I think once you get that instilled, that it's possible, you got a great foundation, a great base. You have a mother that believes that not only, believing in the things that you cannot see, but the things unseen. I think you can go anywhere. I think, you can go anywhere. My dad, on the other hand, he made some choices early on in life that just were not beneficial to our family and to his future. And so, with that, you learn early on that you've got to live in your choices, and once you make them, you've got to be accountable to them. And so I think with my parents, choosing the choices they did, or making the choices they did for our family as a whole, I think you just learn to go after whatever you want, pursue it fully. Again, writing about millennials, writing about the faith, and writing about our choices and the sin that we kind of, our struggles that we struggle with each and every day. I think that's an important conversation if we're going to be looking at the future some years out.
So what led you from being kind of immersed in the sports industry and working there, and perhaps making the assumption that you were going to dwell in that field
Yeah.
for several years into creating what you have now with Millennial Faith.
Sure, sure. I think when you look at an industry, an in the industry, I read something the other day. 80 million millennials in the United States of America, and about a half of those, or a little bit more than half, want to pursue entrepreneurship. And so my mom was always about, you could build someone else's legacy, or you can start to work on yours. And that's really our decision that all of us, I think, even outside of being a millennial, I think all of us, are struggle with that. Okay, am I going to pursue my passion, a family legacy for myself, or am I going to continue to kind of build someone else's? And so, what led me out of the sports industry is I think I'd reached the mountaintop per se. I'd worked, I was an intern. I started as an intern for this team here in Dallas, worked my way up in a year, was promoted to senior director. Did that, enjoyed it, met people, networked, after that, got the opportunity to work for our major league team here, made the money, made some money, and then went to go work in New York. And New York was a great experience. And then after that, I got to thinking, what's going to be the long-term play here? And for me, again, writing has always been a passion. Writing is the best way we hand down the information or the experiences that we're living out today. And so, writing the first book was amazing. It got a great response. Helped a lot. I hope helped a lot of kids get into the sports industry. And with this book and Millennial Faith, with the movement, I hope that we can inspire people to a new conversation. And that is a conversation of the faith, of getting out of kind of this religiosity, work-based faith, and getting into a relationship, with a God who loves us more than we could ever know. So, that's what drove me out of the sports industry and into what I'm doing now. And just the long-term goal, the passion behind that kind of purpose or that kind of mission, and furthering writing. Love writing, so.
Yeah. One of the key distinctions with us original millennials is that we specifically are focused on how we can merge profit and purpose.
Right. Yeah.
And we've seen it more so with a different segment of millennials. So, of course, we see that millennials in general really want to have that work-life balance and be
Right.
satisfied with their careers. But there's a different segment of us who really, really concerned about making sure that our purpose also meets some kind of profit for us and
Yeah.
vice
Sure.
versa.
Yeah.
So how have you been able to merge that profit and purpose for yourself?
I think two ways. I think one, when you look at, so I think, again, I think most millennials are thinking outside the box when it comes to generating revenue to pay bills. Okay. And so when you look at the industry, such as writing a book, publishing a book, you can make some money there, writing on what you're passionate about, and then putting it out, so that you help people with that passion. And so the way I've been able to do both right now is I write. I'm always looking at the industry, seeing what the changes are going to be, how you can make money through speaking on what you write on. You can make money through ebook publishing. And so again, but the content has to be there, and the content has to speak to people. And so it can't just be about self and making profit, not only for yourself, but it has to be the message that you choose to write on has to be able to impact more than just yourself. And so I think that's a good way, or one way, to take the love of writing and then merge it with some type of revenue generation. Again, there's several ways that can be done. I think you just really have to find what you're passionate about, because there's always a way, if you do what you love, to get paid for it. And so it's doing the research, doing your homework, being knowledgeable in your field, whatever it is that you want to go into, or whatever it is that you want to step into, and then taking it from there.
Yeah, I often say that purpose or your passions can change.
Yeah, yeah.
Your purpose is something that you find through your passions.
Yeah, I agree. It's
It's something that often evolves and grows. Speak a little bit about the project, the upcoming project Millennial Faith, through the process of building this leadership series and writing the book, I've seen a lot of research, and will include some of that research
Yeah.
in this series, that says that millennials are abandoning our faith. We're doing a couple of things. We're abandoning or abandoning the practice, if you will, of faith,
Right.
of a faith practice, the practice of religion, if you will.
Right.
We're abandoning it. One, two, we are rediscovering what we may have been taught as kids that it was
Right.
handed down to our parents.
Right.
Or three, we are trying to find our own faith practice because we did not have one,
Right.
or we weren't passed down one as kids. So there's several things going on within our generation as it relates to millennials, but the majority of research, the majority of studies, the majority of reports are saying that we are not taking up a faith practice.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that?
So you pointed out three good points there. And I'm really gonna hone in on that last question, abandoning the faith practice. You look at what NPR put out in 2014 about, so they said, depression among our generation, Gen Y, has increased since the 2000s. And so the question I asked myself, if we are getting more of what we want, then why are we depressed? Then what is going on? I think the question has to be asked. And so when you look at the faith, and I'm not talking about religiosity, I'm not talking about performance-based faith where you feel I got to work my way to Christ. I'm not talking about any of that. I like to have the conversation with other millennials, relationship with Christ, a relationship with the God of the universe. And so when we look at it from a relational aspect, a relationship that, I have with my boyfriend, or I have with a girlfriend, those relationships have to be fed into. They have to be built. They're not already just a present neatly wrapped and given to us. We really have to work to make those relationships flourish. And so when you tie that back into the aspect, or to the when you tie that back into religion, a relationship with Christ, we've got to work on it. We've got to seek him in some of the things in all the things that we're doing in our life. We've really got to understand that we were created. And I know there are arguments left and right where did we come here out of chimps and monkeys, or is there this God who created? And I think history speaks for itself when we go back into the history books and we start to see that this man named Jesus Christ walked the earth 2,000 plus years ago. The history is there. And so now you have the human aspect of it. Are we going to deny the truth, or now we're going to step into it? And then what does that truth mean for our lives? And so usually what I've been seeing and what I've experienced in my own life, my own testimony, trying to find God, or trying to find my own God and everything else in this world. And so, early in my 20s, not being tied to the faith and trying to find, God through, meditation and all this and that, when really what I was doing was denying the truth, seeking my own way, and hoping that things will turn out good. And what I found in my own life is not it's just not so. I sought my own way for a long time, and man, do we all have the scars to prove it? And so when we look at millennials turning away from the faith, we have to be able to look in the mirror and have an honest discussion, an honest conversation with ourselves. Are we hardening our heart? Are we just in denial? Or are we really just trying to seek a better understanding? And if that is so, then I say, hey, jump into a church, get into a community group that can come around you, that you can ask the hard questions, that they can challenge you, hold you accountable to your life and your choices, so that you don't have to get the scars and end up with all the pain that's due when we kind of seek our own way. So, yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That is a lot. And
yeah.
It's interesting because there's so much to wrap into it.
Yeah, sure.
There's so much to pull away from it as well.
Yeah.
Especially when you said the piece about, building a relationship.
Yeah.
And creating an opportunity to have a relationship that's not just a give, like you just
Yeah.
don't not getting things
Yeah.
from
Exactly. Yeah.
the God that you believe in, but you're actually giving and putting, sowing, like the whole what we talk about, reap what you
Yeah.
sow, etc. So speak a little bit more about the challenges that you think millennials face, and what kind of challenges do you think that you face as a millennial in leadership?
Yeah. The challenges millennials face today are many. Society, our culture right now is loud. It is loud, and it is pulling you. It is so loud that I don't, I kind of thinking about the generation that's coming behind us. It's a little, frightening. That's really the only word I can use. Simply because the culture around us, especially living in America, where everything is there, everything's available, and what we want we can pursue. That only breeds more of our own choices, more of our own narcissism, and so the challenge for millennials is really taking a stand and saying, "Look, I've done it my way. I'm living in my choices. I want better. And what does better look like? And so what does that look like? And then not only in humility, submitting ourselves to our high calling, to Christ and the mission that he came. I think what for millennials, what we also have to understand is that, again, there's believers, we have non-believers, and we have all these other religions out there. Just speaking about Christianity, the mission, the death mission, almost, to say that Christ was sent on for our lives. When he was sent into the world, he only had one objective, and that was to free us from the sin that enslaves us. And so, again, we go back to your question. The challenge is for millennials today is, how do we get free and stay free, right? So how do we get free from narcissism, pornography, alcoholism, and stay free? And I think it's going to be turning off the TV, getting out of social media, getting away and spending some time with your thoughts, with God, asking some questions. Look, God, I don't understand. Help me understand. That's probably the number one question that should be asked with our generation. If I don't get it, if I don't understand this whole faith walk thing, what should I do? God, I believe, help I don't believe, help my disbelief, And so we've got to ask that question. Then we got to go on a journey. And going on that journey means unplugging from the world. It means saying no to some partying. It means saying no to some hanging out. And it means really getting, by yourself so that you can hear. And so to your second question, I think that second question was what are some of the challenges I face in that? Like you all, like all of millennials, the biggest challenge is standing firm in that commitment. Standing firm in that commitment not to follow the crowd, standing firm in that commitment to say no when it's so easy to say yes. And so that's probably the biggest challenge. Writing for me, the enemy wants to say a lot. Oh, girl, you can't write. What are you talking about? These people gonna do what they want to do. But at the same time, there's something important to following it through and saying, God, come hell or high water, I'm going with you, and we're going to get it done. And so it's believing in yourself, and it's believing that no matter what happens, like you got a God that loves you, that wants to take care of you, and we've got to seek out that truth. And so, yeah, I hope I answered both of those, but yeah.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that religion and or faith, however you want to package it, for the work that you do, why do you think that perhaps that can be such a touchy subject amongst our generation, or something that we may not want to? Why are the studies saying that we are abandoning faith?
Yeah. So I'll answer two parts of that question. What millennial faith is, what this movement is going to be about, it's going to be about asking the hard questions, and we're going to be asking them all the time. The reason faith has become such a touchy subject in our culture today is because, well, let's take a look at what faith is. Let's take a look at what faith asked of you. So if faith is the substance of things hoped for and evidence of things not seen, and I'm saying I have this faith in this God who loves me and who wants the best for me. Okay, so if I love someone, there's going to be some things, there's a give and take there, right? So now that I believe in this God, I have faith in this God, and I love this God. So what is he saying about as it pertains to my life? What is he asking me to look at or to do so that I can live a life in joy and peace and happiness? And so when you look at our culture today, and then you look at the message of the faith, a book written 2,000 plus years ago, still so relevant and so pertinent to our lives today. When you look at it, it says, hey, maybe premarital sex is not the way, right? But our culture says, if you love them, why not? Why not give it up? Why not be in a relationship that's intimate, And so when we look at when we have scripture, we have the word, and then we have our culture, they're going at each other. And so that's when it becomes a touchy subject. But I don't think we can deny what going our own way has done to us. I mean, I've got some heartbreak stories. I'm sure you all have some heartbreak stories. I'm sure we all, but that was us choosing our choices and living in those choices. And so in maturity, in humility, we step back and we say, look, God, I've done it my way. I know the culture says this, but you say this. So let me try you. Let me try and see what you're about. And I think, again, that takes man laying it all down. That takes laying it all down and walking away. And so that is the struggle. The struggle is indeed real today.
Yeah, I think that there's so much again, which is a great reason for why we're doing this project, right? There's so much that's being said about who we are as millennials. Right. And so to be able to speak about original millennials, those of us who don't necessarily fit the stereotype, is very important, because there's a lot that said that talks about who we are in the workplace. Yeah. There's a lot that talks about who we are just in general, our lifestyle, our shopping habits, our consumerism, etc. But then there's a segment that talks, as I said earlier, about who we are as in a spiritual capacity. Sure. And several years ago, there was content or studies that came out about us, like literally the fact that we're abandoning God or abandoning our faith. We're not sitting in the pews. But then there's also a lot of content and research out there about us starting our own, churches, doing our own faith-based nonprofits and things of that nature. I know I have several even friends who have their own projects and things that they work on that are very, very faith-based. Yeah. Nonprofits, and even the social ventures that they have, and even their, gaining profit for the work that they do. Right. So it's not good in any capacity, no matter what the topic is. It's not a good thing to pigeonhole us, but we realize that because of the culture shift, that there's some major conversations that are being had about what we are doing and how we're completely changing, turning things around in comparison to what the norm says that we should do, or what the norm has been. Outside of say sports and your faith practice, what do you think? And maybe these things kind of fit well for you, but what elements of culture do you think have been most influential for you and where you are now?
Elements of culture, I think there's a few things. I think being a constant observer of the culture that we live in today, of the American culture that we live in today, and then being a constant questioner, so asking questions about it. Two streams of thoughts that God of my youth will focus on is you've got popular culture or pop culture, mainstream versus traditionalism, values that were, maybe our parents' values. And then you have what we're going to decide on today, what millennials are going to decide the future is going to look like based on our actions, based on our choices. And what I always like to challenge people when looking at those two opposing views, popular culture, mainstream versus, what traditional values that were instilled in us and what we're going to live out in the future is, first we got to talk about definition. Like, again, I want to stress to millennials, try to live your life undefined by what people say you are, who people say you are. The good thing I tell people, and it's been a blessing in my life, is when you realize whose you are, not who you are, but whose you are. When you realize that, man, you are a child of the Most High, and that there's nothing in this world that can take that away from you. How much freedom do you live in? There's someone trying to put you in a box and say, oh, you're this, or you're a salesperson, or you're a singer, or you're an artist, or whatever. People want to put people in these boxes, and they can be good sometimes, and they can be bad. If you grew up in the inner city and people say, oh man, you're not gonna make it out of there, you grew up in the inner city, and kind of write you off. And so I think what we have to take a look at, the most influential things of this culture today that I've taken a look at, and that I will be writing on, is definition. Again, define who you are through Christ, through the good things in this life. Don't allow people to define you. I think it's instrumental to anyone kind of pulling themselves up by the bootstraps and making any type of change. So yeah.
That's interesting. And I think that just connecting to what you said about how that all evolves, and the actual work that you're doing and what you're writing about and what you advocate for, and really where that fits. And I think also, the flexibility and the freedom to be able to explore. I think some people appreciate that.
Yeah.
But then also the freedom and the flexibility to know that you have a foundation.
Yeah.
Is also key as well. Talk a little bit more about how your work empowers millennials. We work well together. In other generations may disagree, but we relate, and we understand, and we know each other. We understand each other in a different way. Our code is different, right? So speak about why empowerment is so important and essential amongst the millennials.
I think empowerment among millennials is important because there is no more of this. We're getting out of the thought pattern that I was raised, on the other side of the tracks, so that's just who I want to be. So we're getting the thought pattern that, I'm going to be a grandpa and dad. And we're starting to pave our own way. And so because of that, why I think it's so important to empower millennials is that if we're paving our own way, that means we have to be accountable to our choices. And then we have to know why we make the choices we make. And so there's no more pointing and blaming the next guy. There's no one to point at. There's only self. And so we've got to understand what makes us choose what we choose. Why do we do the things? Why do we do the things that we do? And then how can we choose and do better? And I tell you right now, again, my life finding Christ and becoming a Christian I was a sailor without a compass, I like to say, because you're just out here hoping that things will work. And I think once you've got a firm foundation, the sky is truly the limit. If the sky is truly the limit. And so empowerment is essential among millennials, simply because it's you, and you've got to live out those choices that you make. Again, millennial faith, the movement, again, I like to say we're going to be agitators. We're going to be contrarians. We're going to be going against the culture. We're going to be saying, no, y'all can have that. I found a better life. I found something, and I want to dive into it. I found a relationship with Christ that I want to just explore, that I want to share. And so that's what I'm hoping to build through millennial faith, is that firm foundation that we've had. And now once you've got that firm foundation, what do you do with it? And there's only one thing to do with it, because once you hear the good news, you got to take it somewhere else, and you got to share it with the people you love, and you got to share it with your family and your community. And that's, I believe that's how we all kind of rise up and kind of get better. So, yeah.
Thank you. Tell me a little, or tell us a little bit more about what to expect with the work that you do with your company, Millennial Faith, and your book.
Yeah. So I think what can you expect from Millennial Faith, God of My Youth? I want some unedited truth. I want to have conversations that I think are not being had today. I say it's the elephant in the room when we look at topics like premarital sex, pornography addiction, homosexuality. There's conversations that the world is having, but nobody's pointing out the elephant in the room. Meaning, and I say that, let's look at premarital sex, for instance. Society says choose that for your life, but nobody's talking about the divorce rate. No one is talking about children being brought into the world, single parents, mother or father struggling. No one's having those conversations. So we're just all out here. I'm gonna say willy-nilly. No one's really stepping up, or becoming accountable for what's coming out of those choices. So, I think again, Millennial Faith are going to be important shifters to thought. I hope, and I hope that millennials that are not believers can come around it, in it, can see some life in it, and hopefully get behind it. So
Awesome. All right, last question.
yes.
What song do you think defines you as an original millennial?
Well, see, I knew you were going to. If you look at my iPhone right now, you see a variety of music. Because you're just taking a new place today and deciding today. There's a lot out there. I like to listen to stuff with no words. I love Johnny Singh, Kirk Franklin, stuff. I think I love some symphony, orchestra music. I look at stuff that has words, so I can, just space out and think. So, yeah.
So there is no one song overall that's kind of like your theme song or anything like that?
Do I have a theme song? Okay, so I'm going to mention this group, but if you're probably, whatever, we'll see what happens. So there's a group, they've got some good music. They're called Johnny Swim, and they've got a song called Take the World, and it's an amazing song. And so again, it's a group I don't know if many people know about them or not. They've got some very good positive music, and they're probably, that's my song right now that's playing on repeat in my car. So
I'm familiar with Johnny Swim. I haven't heard the song, but I am familiar with the group.
Good.
It's a duo, a female-male duo, right?
Yes. Very good music. Very good music.
Awesome. So anything else? That was our last question. Is there anything else you want to share with anybody who might be watching about millennials and original millennials in general, or overall, or specifically?
Yeah, to all you original millennials out there, look, be original. Let's have a dialogue. Let's have a conversation. I think all this, when someone has a thought or a point of view, I say let's discuss it. We've got to be able to talk more. We've got to be able to express ourselves more through our words and through what we believe. And let's see if we can exchange some ideas, some concepts, hopefully to make this world better, look different, look better. So yeah, that's all I want to say. Just I encourage open dialogue. I encourage the exchange of ideas and thoughts, and let's see where it can take us.
Awesome. I do too. So everybody that's watching, feel free to tweet OG Millennial. Feel free to tweet this video, share it, give comments, give feedback if you're watching via YouTube. I'm doing a couple of little teasers via Periscope, but maybe by the time you watch this, Periscope will be expired. But
What happens?
Yes, absolutely. So feel free to give us feedback. And if there is anybody that you think should be featured on the website, of course, the book will be written by the time you watch this. It'll be out. You go to theoriginalmillennial.com. You can purchase it right now. again, let's keep the conversation going. Get on the mailing list, follow on Twitter, follow on Facebook, etc. Where can we find you? Give us your Twitter and all your social media handles.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on Twitter at Earlina Green. I got a weird name and a long story behind it. So that's spelled Earlina Green. I'm on Facebook, Earlina Green page. And you can find Millennial Faith on Twitter as well, MFaith TV. We're getting ready to do some huge things in 2016. So please, again, join the conversation. Bring all your thoughts. Bring your criticism. Bring your history, and let's all have a conversation. So thank you all for letting me do this today with you today.
Awesome. Thank you, Earlina. Super appreciative for you being a part of this project, and really commend you for creating your project and writing your book on millennial faith and God of our youth, right? Or God of my youth?
Yeah.
Is that the name?
Yeah, God of my youth. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. So really appreciate you for being here. And again, thank you everybody for watching. Go to the website, The Original Millennial, to see more original millennials and hear more of their stories. You'll find blog posts, you'll find podcasts, you'll find links to videos, etc. And then sign up to get any email updates that we may send out. You can also, of course, purchase the book as well. This is a series, so we want to continue the conversation. We want to continue creating content that you can engage in. If you have an interest in having myself or any of the original millennials who've been featured in this series to maybe speak at your event or participate in some of your conferences, etc., all of us so far will be more than willing and more than happy to determine if that's a good fit for us. We're really passionate about our generation. We're really passionate about even the future generations that are coming behind us. And we're passionate about the generations that have come before us so that we can work better together. So feel free to reach out to us. And if you don't know how to reach out to any of the folks that you've seen in this video series, feel free to reach out to me. I'll connect you to them, or you can Google them. That's what we do as millennials. Right?
Exactly.
Right. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk soon.